Oh, this is going to be a good one. My name is Mike Redman alongside my brother Darren Redman, and we are live on the Around the Ballpark podcast, episode number 81, ladies and gentlemen. And we are going to talk about one of my favorite things in the world. There's God, there's family, God, wife, family, and then there's the New York Mets. And we're going to talk about the New York Mets here tonight. We have a very special guest. Ed Geyer is with us, close family friend for many, many years, and I can't wait talk to you about all things New York Mets. This is a good year to talk about them. But before we do all that, as you see the ticker there at the bottom of the screen, we have to give a shout out, as we always do, first and foremost, to our proud sponsors over at Nashville Tax Solutions. So Darren, if you would mind sharing some words with our listeners about Nashville Tax Solutions.
Palm Bay, Fort Pierce, are tax problems weighing you down? Behind on filings? Are you facing a lien? Nashville Tax Solutions is here with the expertise and dedication you need. Their experienced team handles the IRS so you do not have to. But just don't take my word for it. Just don't take Mike's word for it. Hear what some clients have told us. Chris Bennett and his team turned a nightmare into peace of mind. They're sharp, they're honest, and they truly care. So don't let tax stress take over your life. Call 855-627-4829. Visit NashvilleTaxSolutions.com today. Nashville Tax Solutions, real help, real results.
Thank you, Darren. And one thing when it comes to taxes, we know signing with a New York team, that's something that comes into consideration when you're signing a big deal. Oh, when am I going to get taxed and all that sort of stuff. But this is an exciting year to be a New York Mets fan, and we have one on with us. It's a lot more fun. We have a third party on here with us, and so Ed Geyer is with us. Ed, if you wouldn't mind just sharing just a quick little bit about yourself and how you became to be a Mets fan so many years ago.
Wow, I've been a Mets fan since 1962, actually, since the conception. Way back then, I was a little young lad, and I used to hear Casey Stengel run around yelling, "Metsies, Metsies, Metsies." And how I became a Met fan, believe it or not, was because of how they downplayed Roger Maris's 61 and 61, because they wanted Mantle to break the record, but Roger Maris went ahead and broke it. And the Yankees really didn't honor the fact that Roger Maris broke the record, and they sort of tried to downplay it. Well, he played more games.
It was a disgrace.
Did. Yeah, it was a big disgrace, and I really got turned off by it. And I said, you know what? I'm not happy with baseball. And then 62 came around, and the National League was getting their own New York team again. And lo and behold, I became a Met fan. And win or lose, I was a Met fan, true and blue.
That's awesome. Darren, I want to let you have the first question tonight. There's so many places we can go. Let's not start with that one relief pitcher whose name we don't want to mention just yet. But go ahead and pick a topic, and we'll start from there. I do want to give you guys a quick heads up, though. It shouldn't affect too much. But sometimes these kerfuffles happen, as Darren likes to call them. And my computer has decided that 8:23 p.m. is an appropriate time that they're going to do an automatic update. So I might be down for 2 or 3 minutes. So if I do disappear, go ahead and continue the chatter. I'll pop right back on just in case I disappear. So go ahead, Darren, with the first question.
That is a kerfuffle. That absolutely is. So, Ed, you mentioned 1962. What are your reminiscences, whether it's watching it on television or going to the Polo Grounds?
Well, actually, Darryl, the Polo Grounds was something that really fascinated me, because if you remember, the Polo Grounds in center field had that big, huge wall, Yep. And I remember back in those days, you were able to smoke in the stands and everything else, and my mom had took me to a ball game there, and her cigarettes fell off the shelf of the wall, and they landed down on the playing field. And lo and behold, down there on the playing field was Gil Hodges and Duke Schneider.
Yep.
And my mother was saying, excuse me. And I turned around and said, Mom, that's Duke Schneider and Gil Hodges. She says, well, who are they? I said, they're the old Brooklyn Dodger greats, man. Mom, come on. And she said, well, then call him. So I yelled down, yo, Mr. Hodges. And he looked up, and I said, can you throw my mother's cigarettes back up? And she smoked Cool non-filters.
Cool.
And he picked, Cool's non-filters. And he picked them up, and he said, are you going to catch them? And I put my glove out, and he tossed them up, and they landed in my glove. And I said, thank you. And my mother said, oh, he's such a nice man. And I said, Mom, he's married.
Well, first of all, that is a classic story. Playing catch with Gil Hodges, much less playing catch with cigarettes with Gil Hodges. And if those kids playing home, you found your Cools, they were next to the Sailors.
Absolutely. Boy, did I just get my age away.
That's both of our ages. Absolutely.
I just went to, so I was in Jacksonville this weekend and for a conference. And so we went to this sports bar for lunch on our break. And out of the corner of my eye, next to the soda fountain area, was an old school that still was selling cigarettes, like the pull machine. And they had the Camel non-filters, and they had all that stuff in there. I think it was like $3.75 or something like that. I don't know if that was an old price or what, but yeah, it was still in operation. And it was like a one-stop shop because the same guy at the bar that was taking orders was bringing the meals to the table, getting everything. And poor guy, he was like confused, like why all these people are showing up to this like hole-in-the-wall dive bar in the middle of the day. But we needed to go eat somewhere, so.
That's right.
But yeah,
that's awesome.
So I want to ask you. So one thing we joke about on the show sometimes. So going back to Shea Stadium now. So one of my favorite memories is always getting the RC Cola, and it disappeared for years, and then it showed back up here at Dollar General like a couple of years ago, and apparently it's not everywhere. I don't know where you're at now, if that's still a thing, but I still from time to time will have RC Cola, and they try to throw in cherry and all this other stuff, but I'm just a normal. Darren made the joke, by the end of the seventh inning, the cup will disintegrate if there's still anything left.
It did.
But what are your recollections of RC Cola, either at the stadium, or do they have that where you live now? Or
they actually do have RC Cola. I'm in Tennessee right now. So, naturally, Mike, I lived in Palm Bay for 35 years, and my family both of my daughters got jobs up here in Tennessee, so I moved up to Tennessee. So I'm presently living in a town called Savannah, Tennessee, not Savannah, Georgia, Savannah, Tennessee.
Never knew of such a place. Okay.
That's I say I live in Savannah, and people say, "Oh, Georgia." I say, "No, Tennessee." Nope. And then my one daughter lives in Chattanooga, and my other daughter lives in Nashville. So I'm sort of not exactly in the middle, but I'm 4 hours from one and 2.5 hours from the other.
So
I
want to stop you there for a second, because I have a friend of mine who lives and dies Tennessee Vols. And can you explain to our friends in the Northeast who don't understand what it's like in one of these states and places where it's all about their college football or basketball in some cases, even baseball, but mostly football. Tennessee, that really is just like the whole state shuts down when they played. Isn't that true?
Well, it's really funny. Tennessee is really a funny state when it comes to college sports, because it depends where you live. Where I live in Western Tennessee, I'm in what they call the Triangle. I'm on the borderlines of Mississippi and Alabama. So here
Ooh,
I have Alabama fans, I have Ole
wow.
Miss fans, I have
Mhm.
Mississippi State fans, and then you have me, the lonely
Right.
Florida Gator fan.
Wow. Wow.
Wow, that's crazy. And just an update for you sport fans, as you know, of course, tonight is the rubber match, Mets and Yankees, and they are in the fourth inning. Spoilers or no spoilers, gentlemen? Before I share,
Well, spoilers, you brought it up.
okay, it is Yankees 2, Mets 1, top of the fourth right now. So still early in the game. Yankees scored 2 in the bottom of the first, and then the Mets scored a run in the top of the second. So 2-1 there. There's a lot of stuff going on tonight, not just in baseball, but of course in the NHL. There's that big Game 7 with the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers. Are regular listeners. A lot of them are at a watch party right now in Fort Lauderdale watching the game. So keeping my eyes on that. I watched a little bit of the Stars.
You gonna do a little
and Jets
spoiler on
last
that?
night.
Who's winning that game? Do you know? Do we have an update yet?
Of the Panthers. I think they just got underway.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, so it's 2 minutes left in the first period, and it's 0-0. So
Yeah, my son-in-law, who lives in Chattanooga, big Florida Panther fan. So last year when the Rangers were in the playoffs, and I'm a Ranger fan,
Me too.
we sort of had that little rubbing in when the Panthers ended up winning everything, So,
Yep.
but he's listening to the podcast, and I sent him a link to listen, and I'm sure that he has his eyes glued to the TV set watching his Panthers.
yeah, I know one of the things that's tough with doing the whole social media thing is like we try to be consistent. So unfortunately, Sunday night is a great night, but sometimes things like that happen, and where it's like they have to kind of keep things minimized or watch multiple things at once. So we just hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. That's all we can ask for. Keep us on in the background, if nothing else. So you were going to say something, Darren?
I was going to say, it's just to kind of double back a little bit, back to the Mets. We all know what they did in '69. But what year, you as a Met fan who goes back, did you say, you know what, this team can compete? 65, 66, where was it?
Darryl, you and I probably come from the same school, and I'm sure that the 2001 Mets are very sentimental to our hearts. I know I went up in September. I was up in New York September 18th, 1 week after 9/11, and I went back to the first game, Mets Braves, when they started playing ball again, and seeing Piazza hit that home run.
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't a matter of winning or losing or anything like that. It was just that baseball was there, and my Mets were proudly playing for their motherland, as I called it. And that's the moment in baseball that I'll never forget.
Yeah, it's hard to top that moment for sure. Speaking of moments, I want to ask you about. So recently, you had a road trip. You got to go from Tennessee to Arizona. What made you pick Arizona? I'm just curiosity. And then number one, and then number two, if you wouldn't mind just kind of diving into that whole experience. You got to see an entire series. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing that.
What I do is each year I plan a little trip to someplace I haven't been in a while. And 2 years ago it was St. Louis. Last year it was Chicago. And this year I said, well, got a 3-game set in Arizona. I'll go to Arizona. I haven't been there in a while. So I hopped in my car and I drove out to Arizona. My first stop was Winslow, so I could stand on the corner and watch all the girls go by.
That's right. Absolutely. I love that.
Then I made it into Phoenix and went to the Monday night game, and we we played a great game. Then we went to
He's
the
in deep thought.
Tuesday night game, and it was another great game. And then I said, well, I guess I'm going to stay around for a Wednesday afternoon game and watch Singer pitch. And we ended up winning that game there, and we took the series 2-1, and it was a great road trip for me. And the year before we took 2 from Chicago, so that was a great road trip for me. The year before that we took 2 from St. Louis, so that was a great road trip for me.
Nice.
So every year I look at the Mets schedule and I say, okay, I haven't been here in a while. This year it was Arizona. It was a nice drive. I usually leave at like 3:00 in the morning to get most of the heavy driving out of the way before the sun comes up and get past most of the heavy traffic. But as I said, stopping in Winslow was a great adventure. Stopping in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and checking out when they were going to have the Balloon Festival, which is October 11th and 12th, if I remember correctly. And then, going on and it was a little disappointing because, when you're living in your neck of the woods, all you see is what is around you.
Sure.
And when you take these road trips and you start seeing how most of the country has not really really developed again from COVID.
Agreed.
A lot of businesses went out of business. A lot of storefronts are still closed up and things like that there, that you now have to take a look at major sports such as baseball as something that brings people back together again.
Yep.
I mean, when you go to a Monday, Tuesday night ball games out in Arizona and you have 34,000, 35,000 people on a Monday and Tuesday night, I mean, I know it was because the Mets were there, but
still,
that's what brings people together.
Yeah, that's a good point. And again, just as a reminder, in the next 60 seconds, I might disappear for a few minutes. Keep talking. I'll pop right back in. If I do disappear, the computer, it wouldn't let me pick a different time. Similar, I went the flight route. I didn't drive, but went to Cincinnati this year and saw 2 games with the Cincinnati against Seattle. I decided that I'm going to try to continue the same thing, one city a year, but I'm going to pick a random game. As much fun as it would be to be a fan of the road team, I just wanted to immerse myself into wherever I'm going and not be a fan of the opposing team every time. So that way I can kind of cheer on the team, even though I'm just a fan for the day. So I had a blast in Cincinnati this year, picked a hotel walking distance from the park. And so that was beautiful. And then last year, of course, I went up and saw Darren, went to Fenway and checked out Rays and Red Sox in Fenway Park. So I've only seen 6 stadiums of current stadiums. So I've already picked out 2026's. I'm hoping to go in Atlanta in September or in August. The wife wants to go to a concert the same night that there's a Mets game against the Braves. So maybe I can pull that one off. But I definitely, right there with you, pick that 1 or 2 road trips a year is the way to go. So much fun.
Yeah. And, I mean, Atlanta is 5 hours from me. So, when the Mets come up, if I can get a set of tickets, I might take a trip over there because it's close and I don't mind driving 5 there and 5 back. 10 hours and 4 hours for a ball game, 14 hours. Well, that's how many hours I drove before I stopped when I went to Arizona. So that's a good trip for
that's
me.
Not bad. Yeah, I feel like it's in August. I'll send you the dates just in case I do, but it's sometime in August is when I kind of circled it. But so what I wanted to kind of dissecting this 2025 team, there's so much to talk about, but you got to start with what we all thought was going to be the Achilles heel, was the starting pitching, and it turned out to be completely the opposite. They've come down to earth a little bit since the first start of the season, but what they were doing is really not sustainable. But what they're still able to do, number one, though, is the fact that they're all, knock on wood, they're all still healthy in terms of the 5 they started with. I know we had some injuries before the season started, but I think it all starts with Griffin Canning. So, Darren, I'll ask you this question first, and then we'll go to Ed. But what is the story for their success this season? Why are they so successful as a 5-man group this year?
Well, little birdie told me that Ed is not thrilled with some of the overall pitching. They have this kind of pitching, what do they call it? Little pitching scholastic kind of, what do they call it? The pitching something. They just seem to be feeding off of each other. I really wish and need for them to extend themselves farther. But right now it is working. It's working. That's all I'm going to say. But it's wafer thin. A couple of injuries, and we're going to be in trouble. But right now, what's working is they're very scholastic. I know that's nerdy, but they are moving the ball around. I want you to, a wonderful look what happened yesterday with Diaz and Judge. There was no way that Judge thought that Diaz was going to throw that 3-2 pitch, high strike, up and in, let's go. I'm going to give you my best. You try to hit it. There's times you do that. They try to nibble on the outside corner, fouling off, ball. And by the way, the catcher, what's his name? His name's escaped me right now. The backup catcher.
Which one? Torres or
Torrance. Luis Torrance. Yeah.
He's doing a great job. I mean, I know he's not the starter, but he's doing a wonderful job calling games. It's just unbelievable. He's got to get credit for that. I know people say, well, they're calling the game from the dugout. Not really. He's framing. He's doing the right thing, keeping people in order. I think it's a group effort. There's not who's the stud on the Mets staff? Nobody. It's not Sanger. I mean, Sanger's okay, but you can't really say you got a stud who can't go 6 innings.
Right. Yeah, they're equal parts, and Griffin Canning to me stands out the most.
Yes.
But I wish that they have an ace, so to speak, on their team. The one ace that they do have could be an ace is on the IL. So.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about the Mets starters,
if I am down or not.
You're not down.
No, you're there. Yeah, if we're going to talk about the Mets starters, we have to give them kudos. Okay.
Yep.
Number one, since last year, I think the greatest invention has been this Mets pitching lab down in Port St. Lucie.
That's the word.
They have really, I mean, last year they took 2 pitchers that everybody said, what are you signing these 2 guys for? They couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag. And these 2 pitchers ended up taking them into the playoffs. This year, the Mets signed 2 pitchers, and people say, what are you signing those 2 pitchers for? And right now, those 2 pitchers have a combined winning percentage of 10-3. I mean, you have to give credit where credit's due. Now, the Mets have 29 wins this year. Right now, at this point in time, the starting pitching, you have Holmes 5-2, Canning 5-1, Peterson 2-2, Sanger 4-2, and McGill 3-5. So out of those 29 wins, you have the Mets starting pitching staff 14, 17. They have 19 wins.
There you go. 19
wins of the 29. So whether they're going 5 or 6 innings, whatever the setup is after the starting pitching, which is our bullpen, and we have to hope that we can sustain or go out and rebuild it, whichever case may be. I mean, what was that? Minter was a big part of that early release.
Yeah, that stung. Yep.
Young was a big part of that early relief staff. Now, these guys are down. Now they just went out and got that one kid from Arizona,
Yep.
the left-hander from Arizona, and have him up on the 26-man roster. But yeah, you have to give kudos to the pitching coaches. Now I gotta say sometimes, and if I don't know if people can see or not, but I have no hair on my head, and I still try to pull hair out of my head sometimes trying to figure out why they called that pitch. And Darryl, I was sitting there saying last night with Judge up and the 3-2 count, throw your fastball.
There you go.
Throw your fastball. And when he threw the fastball up and in, I jumped off of my recliner and said, "That's how you pitch."
That's right. That's right. That's right.
It was a statement. It was a statement pitch and a statement win.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to ask you this question. So the guy you were talking about, Jose Castillo, right? He's coming in. He's not like he's like the new hot item off the press, hot commodity. He's coming in with an 11.8 ERA, but obviously they see something in this guy, and he's left-handed. So what goes into that thought process in terms of is it because he's a left-hander, but like is it they feel like they can work their magic with him and get him where he needs to be? Because based on stats, it's again the work to come to your question of why are they going for this guy? Your just quick thoughts on that, because on the surface,
you have to remember now.
Move, but I feel like it's gonna work out somehow.
Again, we're looking at a guy that's coming from the National League West, and if you look at the National League West with the Dodgers and the Padres and the Giants this year, they're beating up everybody. I mean, they're scoring 9-10 runs against everybody. So when this guy has an 11.40 ERA, he's pitching mostly against his division. So what the Mets are seeing, in my opinion, is they're saying, you know what? When we go up against a team that's going to put 3 lefties in a row, we could bring this guy in and let him pitch those 3 batters. Hopefully he'll get 2 out of the 3 of them out.
Yep.
If they go to a right-handed batter after that, we'll go to the bullpen. We'll pull our right-handed pitcher in, all with the exception of one guy, and we'll get out of this inning.
Yes. Now let's bring up his name before, so we can, we're not ending now, but that way we don't end on a sour note. So the man we're talking about is Jose 2-Run Buto, as I like to call him. He's like, you got to reach for the antacids when you see him coming in, because you got to wonder, as a manager, you got to say, okay, if there's nobody else available, I feel like you're still questioning putting in a position player in before you put this guy on the mound. But he's
Doug Sisk 2025.
There you go.
What do you think? And as you see the ticker there, the Brewers snapped the Twins' 13-game win streak today, so they'll probably lose 6 in a row. But so what do you think? Like, what are they seeing that we're missing? Because I'm watching 98% of the games, and it's a foregone conclusion. Ed and I, we were talking about the other night how it's like it's going to be a leadoff double, it's going to be a walk, it's going to be a wild pitch, it's going to be, and sure enough, like you called it, it wasn't being sarcastic, but like it legit always happens. So what do you think they're seeing? Like, what are they just holding out hope? Like this is the day, or am I missing something?
Well, I'm going to go back to the good old days. If the Mets would have held on to Nolan Ryan instead of saying, we're never going to teach this guy how to control his fastball, let's trade him, and then Nolan Ryan go on to be the number 1 strikeout king of baseball, it's one of those things there that I actually believe that Stearns turns around and he remember the pitcher Moneyball?
Sure.
When he goes down to the batting cage and there's David Justice in the batting cage, and he's saying, just remember, the New York Yankees are paying us so you could play against them.
Right.
And this is just one of those moments where I believe they're saying the dollar value is worth our while to see if we can get this guy to control his fastball. Because if he does, his secondary pitches become pitches that will offset a lot of things. Because now they can't just sit on that ball in the dirt, that ball in the dirt, that ball in the dirt.
It's true. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into those kind of things, and sometimes you want to shine up a dirty nickel to see if you can get rid of the nickel. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes you do that as well, hoping that somebody will take them. So there's a lot of different things that go into stuff like that. But no, Ed, I think you hit a home run, no pun intended, with that.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you both this quick question. So if you have the quote unquote, I'm a big wrestling guy. So in wrestling, they say if I had the pen, means if I was the booker, if I was the one writing the storylines and all that kind of stuff. If you have the final decision, and you have Frankie Montaz coming back, you have Paul Blackburn coming back, a guy that a lot of people forget about, and then of course you have Sean Manaea coming back. With the current structure in terms of the success, I know you look at Tyler McGill and he's 3-4 with a 3-something ERA, but remember, he started off very hot. He's tampered down a little bit, but he's still a quality starter. But what do you do? What is your move here with those three guys? Is it add a 6-man? Is it 2 to the bullpen? Does one of those 5 get moved to the bullpen in replace of somebody? What do you do? I'll start with you, Ed.
Well, I think you go to a 6-man rotation. I think McGill goes to the bullpen. I think you do whatever you can with Mutos, whether it goes back to the minors or whether you have to put him on waivers, whatever he has available at that point in time. But you got to remember that you got to get to that point in time before you can do what you got to do. Now, a lot of times what happens is that, we hear these reports each day from the Met manager and the Met GM, so-and-so is throwing from 120 feet, or so-and-so just started throwing off of the mound. And then all of a sudden, 5 days later, we hear there's a setback. So no one really should be looking 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month ahead, because you got to play a game tomorrow and you got to win that game tomorrow. Mike, I coached a lot of youth teams in my lifetime, and my 3 things were DDD: defense, desire, and determination. If you can get a player to buy into that, if you can buy into defense, desire, and determination, you can take a so-so player and make him a superstar. And by the way, the Mets tied up the ball game 2-2.
2-2. Yep.
2-2, correct. And and it's the top of the 5th, right?
Yes. Top of the 5th.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I just one more time, I don't want to nag on Muto too much, but I'm sitting here and I'm looking at it, and it says that he is 2-0 with a 2.88 ERA and 24 strikeouts. I feel like someone fibbed those numbers, because I don't. I feel like the 2.88 should be 12.88, but we'll move on with our lives. But I'm just surprised. But no, I think you're right, because it is easy to say, what are they going to do? But everything seems to have a way of working itself out, right? And so it doesn't always come into that. And Mom's online. Mom says, "Let's go Mets." And we got Brian there saying, before this is over, let me know your NBA Finals pick, and if you think the New York Knickerbockers can secure the Larry O'Brien Trophy. And so Darren's thoughts, he says, the Knicks beat Minnie in 6. So you believe you have them beating the Timberwolves in 6?
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I believe the Knicks have an opportunity this year. Yep.
Yeah. I think I do see it being another 7-game series with Indiana, but it can go either way. But I feel like if they can get past Indiana, I think they're good to go. But It's interesting. It's good when New York teams are good and playing this deep in the playoffs. It's good for everybody, for sure. So, but and we're up to 13 viewers right now. So if you are, don't be shy. Go ahead and throw a comment in the chat or whatever. Just let us know that you're here. Hello once again to Mom and to Brian. So what I want to ask you both now is, looking at this team, obviously the lineup, there's a lot of things you can dissect, but what are your thoughts currently on the with Juan Soto, the elephant in the room? Of course, he seems like he has this big game every once in a blue moon, but you're still waiting for this, like, in my opinion, I'm waiting for this, like, 7 for 10, 12 RBI performance. Like, are we going to get that? Like, what's going on there? Because it's easy when you're in the city of New York to look at everything with them under a microscope, right? But, like, I feel like we've been patient. I'm not saying we're going to start hearing boos or anything like that, but at some point, do you consider a batting order positional change, or do we just stay the course? What do you guys think on that?
Let's go to our guest first. I definitely have an opinion.
Well, I really think that we're going to end up having a Francisco Lindor experience. I think that we're going to get to a point where we're going to end up have them having a home game, and the Met fans just getting up and showing support and standing behind him, and he's gonna take off. You got to remember now, we got 29 wins, and we probably got more people left on base in scoring position than the whole league combined.
Yes. Yeah, it does feel like that. And you scratch your head. You say to yourself, oh, there's nobody out. Surely one of these runs is coming in, and then something happens, goes wrong there. When it comes to with Jeff McNeil, let's go there next. So I'm surprised, and we got about 15 minutes left before we have to end this. But with Jeff McNeil, I want to ask your thoughts. Actually, no, Darren, go ahead and your thoughts on Juan Soto, and then go into Jeff McNeil.
So real quick, I mean, Ed hit a home run. I was a full-throated, I do my social media every day, and I was like, Met fans, don't be chuckleheads. I mean, Francisco Lindor is Francisco Lindor. He'll be there in the end. And you had these overreactions. He's overrated, this or that. And then you had probably Yankee fans trolling as Met fans saying, he's a disgrace. Same thing's happening to Juan Soto. Leave him alone. First of all, he's got more walks than anybody else in the National League. He will be more than fine. We're in first place. I mean, look, you got Pete Alonso hitting over 300, and then people are like, well, he's not hitting enough home runs. Met fans love to just panic and just kvetch, just enjoy the ride.
Right, like most people are excited, like, oh, he's hitting the ball the opposite side of the field. That's a good thing. They're focusing on where are the power numbers. Like, okay, well, if he had the power numbers, he's going to be batting 206 again. So let's take a chill pill.
I'll take my home runs.
And if you're going to look at Pete Alonso, and you got to look at, he has 17 doubles? I mean, come on now.
That's right.
The guy is doing what he has to do. He's getting on base. My opinion about the Jeff. We're going to go into Jeff McNeil now. I love Jeff McNeil. I really do. But the last 2 seasons, it seems like he forgets that he's on a baseball field and he thinks he's on a golf course. And that's the swing he's taken. But you look at the first swing he took tonight. First pitch fastball down the middle, line drive over the shortstop. That's the swing he needs to take all the time.
Yep.
And when he takes that swing, he's going to be in good shape. And the versatility, he could play second, he could play third, he could play right, he could play left. I mean, if he has to, he could play first. So the versatility is there.
Yeah, and that's a great answer, because there's just something there, and you need that persona, right? Like, those kind of guys help shape the dynamic of that 26-man roster. There's just something, even if he's not performing on the field, there's just something about Jeff McNeil. Him on your roster, you're better off than with him not on the roster. I was surprised. I really felt like he was going to be a second base and consistently at second base, and then he's basically just been an outfielder. And I am surprised that they've been letting him play every day. But to me, I think there's just something missing there, but I don't know what the rate. I'm not saying move him down or anything like that, but I'm not sure what the missing thing is with him, but there's something missing there. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
Well, Acuna can't play any other position, and that's nothing negative against him. I mean, it really comes down to that. And Jeff McNeil, his value is in the fact that, he'd be a wonderful second baseman once in the All-Star game, but he can play so many different positions. My big problem with the team, other than the pitching, is I don't like what we're doing with the cleanup spot. You two, what's going on there? Leslie Vento's there and just done. I mean, what's going on? Gentlemen, what do you think? I mean, what's going on there?
Well, I see it, and the batting order is a big problem for me. Brandon Nimmo, I love him to death. I really do. But he's not your cleanup hitter.
He's not a cleanup hitter. Okay? He's hitting the ball up.
Right. Mark Vientos, if you put him in as the DH as the number 5 batter and you left him there and you put Beatty at third base and bat him behind Vientos and you bring Brandon Nimmo and put him in the 9th spot. Now you have
that's funny. Yep.
You follow what I'm saying? And you go out and you get another bat.
Yep.
You get it. You get an Arenello. Or you get the center fielder Lewis from Chicago. You get that cleanup bat, and you got a lineup that is extended. I mean, if Francisco Alvarez can hit like he knows how to hit, he could possibly be your cleanup hitter if he would start trying to pull off the ball and go with the pitch rather than try to pull everything.
Yep.
But I'd bat Nimmo 9th, and you'd have a guy that could be himself. He wouldn't have to be looking for this pitch to hit the long ball. If he can get on base before Lindor and before Soto and before Alonso, oh man, you wouldn't have to look for that two out base hit.
No, and so we talked about this on the show a couple of weeks ago, that Nimmo is perfect for that 9 spot. Think about, and I'll tie you in because with our softball connection for all these years, you have that 9 hitter is your second leadoff guy, right? And so that's just comments like it just I can't believe they haven't done that, struck on that yet, because clear as day that's your move. What's been happening is whoever's been there, whether it's been Acuna, whether it's been when he was healthy, when it was Jose Siri, when it was Tyrone Taylor, you're getting guys in the 9 spot that can be an occasional hit, an occasional defensive gem in the outfield. But you get someone like Nimmo in the 9 spot, and it just extends that lineup so much more. Vientos has let me down a little bit. I was a high Vientos guy going into the season. I feel like he'll still figure it out. I think for the time being, he should be your cleanup guy. But I just obviously we need to still be a little more production there. 5 home runs is good, but he had, look at his stats from last year, 18 RBIs. He's played almost every day. So he's definitely still struggling a bit there. But then you can look at the flip side and go, they have 29 wins, and Soto hasn't hit, Vientos hasn't hit, Alvarez really hasn't hit, McNeil hasn't hit. So they're still doing something right. Imagine if they put it all together.
So exactly. I got a quick question, because I know that we'll run out of time, because this is amazing. And this is something that, Mike, you and I spoke about before. I feel good if, my opinion, once a Met, always a Met. But I feel really good for what Wilmer Flores is doing with the San Francisco Giants. Listen, I lived for 16 years out in California and went to many San Francisco Giant games. And I have to tell you, I'll get emotional about it. He will always be a New York Met. But if he has to be someplace else, that's a perfect place for him, and you can see it. They love him there.
I lived in
Yeah.
San Francisco for 7 years.
Oh, so you
So I
know.
used to go to a lot of Giant games. And the other night when they put up on the board, Flores hit 3 home runs, and I was just so happy for the guy.
Yep.
You
I
know,
wanna cry.
and you talk about moments in baseball. That's
Yep.
another moment in baseball that you'll always remember. When the guy walked out the shortstop and he had to take his sleeve from
Yeah.
his jersey and wipe his eyes because he was told by some fan that he just got traded. And here's a guy who's going out there thinking that, he's been a Met since he was 16 years old, and he's losing his home. And, I mean, that's when you remember that these guys are human beings.
Yep. It's
With
so true.
moments like that.
And he only had wonderful things to say about the Mets. And by the way, people say, well, what position does he play with the Giants? He plays first or DH. My point is, he's one of those guys you want on your team because he'll rake and he'll play wherever you tell him to play.
He'll play
loves
second,
playing ball.
He'll play short. He'll play third. He could play anywhere in the infield.
Yep.
Yeah, he can. And just you see the ticker there. Florida Panthers just on the board, 1-0 here in the second period. So awesome for them. But with Wilmer Flores, how funny though? How do you go from a 3 home run game performance to the next day winning it on a walk-off walk? 1-0. It's just like that's the definition of Wilmer Flores.
That's not his first walk-off walk.
Yes.
No.
He did it with the Mets too.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where my mind went when I saw that. I was like, okay, wow, that's awesome. So we're looking at, like Darren mentioned, we got 4 minutes left here, so let's try to I'll try to get through. So, but with the standings, so right now the Mets are one game up on Philadelphia. It seems like it should be more. Hopefully, it's only one today. So they're breathing down their necks. The Braves are playing better baseball, of course. The Nationals are going to be what the Nationals are, but the C.J. Abrams kid is awesome with their. This season, this is feeling like we don't have to always refer back to 1986. It's really feeling like this could be the year. But let's go back in time. This is one of our favorite questions here on the show, Ed. I'll give you a quick minute or so to kind of think it over. But we've got to ask you your Mount Rushmore. We talked a lot about the current roster and some. So who is on your Mount Rushmore? Obviously, Mo Vaughn, correct?
Bruce Beauclair.
My first guy would be David Wright.
Okay. David Wright.
My second guy, of course, would be Tom Seaver. My third guy would probably be Keith Hernandez and Gary Carter. They'd have to have their heads, sewn together because they could only be one person. And then my fourth one, I would probably have to say Gil Hodges for his managing ability and playing ability.
For me, the Mets are one of the most difficult teams to try to pin because you're thinking about the people we left off, right? You have guys like Darryl Strawberry and look at this old timer that just commented here. This old timer, let's see what he said. He said, "What do you think about Phillies Jose Alvarado being suspended?" Tommy, my brother, is on here with us. 80 games, right? I believe it was.
80 games, and he cannot participate in the playoffs.
Right.
And he cannot participate in the playoffs. Well, good for him. I like it. No, not surprised from him. There's been some stuff with him over the years, so not totally surprised. But I mean, it's good for us, I guess. Check on the win column, but not too surprised. Should still not be happening in 2025. Really shouldn't be. By Jose, he says. But I love your list, Ed, in terms of on that. There's so many guys. Would it, a lot of times we think about catchers, we think about managers and stuff, but I know it's completely outside the box. But how do you not find a spot and the chisel and the stone for Gary Cohen and the work they do in the booth. Like that's part of their identity. And so like I find it hard to, if I had my list of 4 and I left it to just for you to do, but I'd find my way to get the booth on there at some point, because not just saying this because you're a Mets fan, but they make the games, you feel it. And it's always and that's the one heartbreak is I'm so excited that this could be a year, right, for the Mets. But it breaks my heart, not literally, but it does, that after game 162, it's goodbye and we'll see you on post-game shows. Like they need to be in there somehow. So your thoughts, Darren, on Ed's list and just on the booth in general?
So I'll make it real quick. Great list by Ed. You can't really nitpick any of those choices. Mine would be a little different. Mine is Tom Seaver, Jerry Kuzman, Mike Piazza, and then the dual-headed Keith Hernandez, Gary Carter.
Yeah. So just to clarify, Darren, Benny Agbayani did not make your list?
You know, him, Roy Stager, and George Theodore were my next 3. They just missed the cut.
Yes. Timo Perez is driving around the parking lot.
Bobby Bonilla just on the cusp.
Yes.
Hey, I got a question. Okay, I got a serious question now.
Okay.
Do you think, in your opinion, that David Wright is a Hall of Famer?
So, go ahead. You want to go first, Mike?
I'll go first. I'm going to say no. I'm going to unfortunately say no. I think all he needed was probably one more year. Like he should be on the ballot, but I think he needed one more year's time to play to get there. But at the same time, if someone says he is, I'm not going to argue for one single solitary second about that. But
I feel the same way. I feel the same way, and maybe even a little bit more than 1 year. He was the kind of guy you want on your team. He was a captain. But if Don Mattingly is not in the Hall of Fame, I cannot put David Wright in the Hall of Fame.
Thank you, because that was my answer. Both Mattingly and Wright deserve to be on the ballot for the Hall of Fame, because Don Mattingly and David Wright suffered from basically the same injury and also almost have identical stats for the years that they played.
That's a very good point.
And I think they're both deserving.
Agreed.
And I think, I think of a guy like Joe Mauer too, who, not saying he doesn't deserve it, but if you're going to get Joe Mauer in, then I think that's where the Wrights and the Mattinglys would fit in as well. A lot more.
I think that'll happen with the Players Committee, after everything is said and done.
Agreed.
Especially with Shoeless Joe Jackson now being eligible, Pete Rose now being eligible. I mean, that Players Committee is going to have a lot of names thrown in front of them.
Oh yeah.
And it may open the door. You might see Bonds and Sosa. And all
I still don't understand why Dale Murphy's not in the Hall of Fame. I mean, the guy was a devastating.
He was a great ball player.
Yeah. Now, what about and I know we keep saying this, so we will end, but with all these people being let back in, like, what about lifting the ban of, like, they're no longer eligible to be on the ballot, like, at some point too, like those guys that kept growing, and then year 10, and now they're at 62%. And hopefully that could happen. That would be something I would appreciate a little bit more. But I never understood the whole concept of let them be on the ballot for 4 years before they get in. Like, nothing's changed. Why are we waiting 4 years to let them in? I don't understand that, but who knows? So, but this has been a blast. Hopefully part 1 of many more here, because this is an exciting year to be a Mets fan for sure. So Ed, thank you for your time. I could talk Mets all day long. Darren as well, thank you for hopping on. And all the listeners that are here and watching along, there's 15 of you guys watching on all 3 different platforms. So I just want to say thank you. And until next time, everybody, we will see you around the ballpark. Bye, guys.
Take care, guys.